We who are weak and wonderful, wicked, bewildered, wistful, and wild, are saying direct good mornings through the fever. These are the words of Gwendolyn Brooks. She was more than just a writer. She was a mother, a teacher, a literary doctor whose words were a salve to a community in desperate need of true representation. Her 1950 Pulitzer Prize was one of her many awards confirming the importance of Black representation on a national platform. Through the work of Brooks Permissions, we embrace her legacy and the continuation of that much-needed representation. Our broad range of offerings include licensing, the Gwendolyn Connection, the book, Seasons, a Gwendolyn Brooks Experience, Graphic Gwendolyn, our illustrated poetry series, and more exciting projects to come. The words of Gwendolyn Brooks are still amazingly meaningful. Whatever your mood or message, her insights challenge and comfort. From the front yard to the back alleys and beyond, she speaks to us. My poem is life and not finished. It shall never be finished. My poem is life and can grow. We are Brooks Permissions. Join us. To find out more, visit gwendolynbrooks.net.
Welcome to GB7. The GB7 Series is a collection of thematic programming delving into the work of Gwendolyn Brooks, the exceptional author, along with her generational impact. In honor of her birthday, on the 7th day of each month, we're streaming looks at Gwendolyn Brooks and her legacy through a diverse range of individuals and organizations who will provide 360 degrees of Gwendolyn Brooks. We are excited about the doors this will open to fresh conversation, insight, and further enlightenment of fans, both longtime and new. We are particularly excited about this September GB7 because it marks the beginning of a new series within our series. Allow us to reintroduce ourselves, Brooks Permissions. And we can't do that without first talking about the reason that Brooks Permissions exists. So today's session will begin to complete the sentence, Gwendolyn Brooks is. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. Here are 3 basic facts everyone needs to know about Gwendolyn Brooks.
All right, so our first fact is one that everyone knows, especially if you are a Black history buff, is that Gwendolyn Brooks won the Pulitzer Prize in 1950 for her book Annie Allen. Now, there's a couple of things to clarify. First off, it's not groundbreaking that she won the Pulitzer for writing this book. That's not the thing that's groundbreaking. It is, but it's also monumentally groundbreaking that Gwendolyn Brooks was the first Black person to ever win a Pulitzer for any category whatsoever. Not just poetry, because people think it's just that. No, for any category whatsoever. She was the first Black person. Now, something that's cool about this experience and also interesting at the same point is the experience that she was going through at that moment. Now, there's a story that's kind of going through the ether right now that she's told where she found out that she had won the Pulitzer, and it was a very interesting time in her life because while everyone was celebrating that she had won this prestigious award, her lights were off at home. So the people were coming and they were going to do the interviews and all of the stuff. And she was like, I wonder what it's going to be like when they plug in their instruments and tools and nothing works. But miraculously, someone found out just in time and everything worked when everyone came for the interview.
Top fact number 2. Gwendolyn Brooks was the Poet Laureate of Illinois for over 30 years. She created the Poet Laureate Awards and was solely responsible for the recipient's monetary gifts.
Top fact number 3. Gwendolyn Brooks was the consultant in poetry to the Library of Congress. Woohoo! That assignment is now referred to as the National Poet Laureate. It was changed not too long after Gwendolyn Brooks was there. But there are so many more things Gwendolyn Brooks is known for, things that are known about her.
Like Gwendolyn Brooks was born in Topeka, Kansas, June 7th, 1917. Now, many people connect
Many people.
with the Great Migration. But what they don't know is her parents, David Anderson and Keziah Brooks, were already residents in Chicago prior to her birth. Keziah wanted to be with her mother when she delivered Gwen. She traveled to Topeka from Chicago, and shortly after delivering Gwen, returned back to her Chicago home.
I think it was about 5 weeks, but I'm not absolutely positive.
Okay, so there's another one that it's a fact, but it's also a question. I was going through the facts and I always get to this one and I'm not sure what the number is. So maybe you can help me. According to what we have, Gwendolyn Brooks has over 70 honorary doctorates.
Maybe 70, maybe 80.
So
maybe
we don't
50, maybe 100. But the good thing is that now her archives are down at Champaign-Urbana, University of Illinois, with the Rare Book and Manuscript Library. And they're doing an incredible job down there. And so hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll actually be able to come up with the real number of honorary doctorates that Gwendolyn Brooks received. I used to make her crazy by calling her Dr. Gwendolyn Brooks. And so I'll know the exact number of doctors soon that I should have added to her title.
I know in Illinois, there are at least 5 schools named after her as well. We don't know how many are throughout the U.S. There are others. In Chicago, there are multiple murals and metalware with her name in it. Like
yeah, engraving.
On 63rd and Cottage Grove. That's not 63rd, that's 60th, isn't it?
61st, it's the corner of 61st where the metal filigree thing is with several different Black people's names on it.
And Mariano, speaking of grocery stores, there's a picture of her in front of the Marianos, and that's on 39th. I'm really good with these streets, aren't I?
Yes, and King Drive. Yeah, so.
Not to mention there's a whole park on the south side named after
Gwendolyn Brooks.
Yeah.
36 Greenwood?
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, you know what? I think it would be a real great thing to put out the plea to everybody that if you've seen a mural of Gwendolyn Brooks, if you've seen a plaque, anything relating to Gwendolyn Brooks, whether it's just for her or she's included in something else, please send us a picture of it and where it is so that we can really start to build this list and everybody can go take a look at all of this cool stuff. And so not just in Chicago, not just in Illinois, but anywhere, because she's also not only engraved into the top of the Illinois State Library building in Springfield. In 2003, they changed the name of it to the Gwendolyn Brooks Illinois State Library building. So, whoop. And we could go on and on and on, but we're not. Except, can't leave out the very first one, because the very first one, while Gwendolyn Brooks was still here and was excited about this being the very first thing, was the Gwendolyn Brooks Cultural Center, the Student Center, the Black Student Center, I think, at Western Illinois University. So we've got to give props to them because they were the first to put her name on something.
Didn't they just come up with something?
That building had its issues and it was finally torn down, but they took that space and turned it into a beautiful park, and it is the Gwendolyn Brooks Park down there in McComb, Illinois.
Okay, that's the second park.
I think there are three because I think there's one in Topeka.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. So we got to keep track of the parks now, too.
Yeah. So anything, calling on everybody. If it's got her name on it, in it, mixed up in it somewhere, send us the information, please. But enough about all this background information on her. I think this is a good time to hear a little bit from the woman herself.
Do you feel that it's a sort of a burden or a responsibility at this stage in your career to speak to other poets or to speak for the Black community or for Chicagoans or anything like that? To what degree, I was thinking of the Pulitzer, and I was wondering to what degree all these awards and successes create a feeling of responsibility to others.
No, they have not made me aware of a sense of responsibility. I do feel responsible, as anyone with decency would feel. But I must hop right in here and tell you I do not speak for, quotes, the Black community. There are many aspects to that community, and I just talk about how I feel. Many of my brothers and sisters feel the same way, but then there are others who do not. For instance, I went to Wellesley. I needn't specify that college, but this event was situated there, so it could have been any other college, and it has been since then. But some years ago, about 3 years ago, I read there. And during a questions and answers period, a young Black woman asked me, "Why do you keep talking about Blackness? That we all know that the time for that is over. We are now merely Americans." And she said she was, for her part, tired of hearing about Blackness. Now, I consider this as very alarming. And I point out when I mention this that the Jews, for all the problems they might have with with themselves, still manage to come together to work toward importances, and they are not ashamed of their heritage. The Chinese are proud to be Chinese. Japanese are proud to be Japanese. And I like for Blacks to be proud of what they have come from. Because they've got a lot to be proud of. First of all, they need to learn that, to find out that they do have much to be proud of.
So the poem that I've chosen as an essential Gwendolyn Brooks piece is the illustrious and pride-inducing "I Am a Black" with the tagline of Kojo. This piece, for me, is an essential Gwendolyn Brooks piece simply because when it comes down to the idea of the Black existence, Gwendolyn Brooks stood for that. Something that she often said was that every other race is proud to be who they are, and Black people have something to be proud of. They have a lot to be proud of. And erasing the title of Black doesn't negate the fact that Black people are everywhere, worldwide. And so, on that note, Kojo, or I Am a Black. According to my teachers, I am now an African American. They call me out of my name. Black is an open umbrella. I am Black and a Black forever. I am one of the Blacks. We are here. We are there. We occur in Brazil, in Nigeria, Ghana, in Botswana, Tanzania, in Kenya, in Russia, Australia, in Haiti, Soweto, in Grenada, in Cuba, in Panama, Libya, in England, and Italy. France. We are graces in any places. I am black and a black forever. I am other than hyphenation. I say proudly, my people. I say proudly, our people. Our people do not disdain to eat yams or melons or grits or to put peanut butter in stew. I am Kojo. In West Africa, Kojo means unconquerable. My parents named me the 7th day from my birth in black spirit, black faith, black communion. I am Kojo. I am a black, and I capitalize my name. Do not call me out of my name. So it's easy to see why Kojo is one of my favorite Gwendolyn Brooks pieces, simply because it not only talks about what it means to be proud of who you are as a person, but it also dives deep into the idea of being proud of where you come from as a people. That is one of the key components of who Gwendolyn Brooks was. It's the key component of what all of her pieces represent, the idea of community and taking pride in that community. Community was the central conceit, the central point of everything that Ms. Brooks wrote about. She wrote about what she knew, what she saw, the people that she knew and experienced on a regular basis. And that community continues to grow and thrive and celebrate her to this very day. So let's take a moment and listen to one of the other community members who so graciously spoke at one of our recent GB7s.
Like countless school children through the generations at this point, my first encounter with Miss Brooks was through the pool player 7 at the Golden Shovel, We Real Cool. I probably encountered that poem for the first time when I was 8 or 9 years old in school. The thing about that is that was cemented in my head as the quintessential Brooks poem. You know, she teased a little bit about that and said, I wish the textbook compilers and the anthologists would know that I wrote some other poems too. It left such an imprint on me. And then when I was in college, I took a class called Black Women Writers of the 40s and 50s with a professor named Jackie Goldsby. And she was my first Black woman professor, and I was so excited to be in her class. And she had us read lots and lots of excerpts from Blacks, the kind of definitive compendium of Brooks poetry. I remember reading Annie Allen for the first time and reading the Aeneid. And I read it and I got to the end and I said, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever read in my life. And I have no idea what it's about. And it kind of set me on the path for what it meant to kind of live a literary life. And it's so representative because it shows the breadth and the depth and the complication of Miss Brooks' work over such a long and storied career, that there, you know, is a poem that I could read as an 8-year-old and be like, I get this. And then poems that I could read a decade later that I'm like, wow, there's so much for me to unpack. It also shaped my idea of what it means to be a writer in society, to be a writer in culture, to be a writer as a member of a community. And that is one of the most important lessons that I've taken away from her legacy.
Black love. Provide the adequate electric for what is lapsing lenient in us now.
Rouse us from blur. Call us.
Call adequately the postponed corner brother.
And call our man in the pinstripe suiting.
And restore him to his abler logic, to his people.
Call to the shattered sister and repair her in her difficult hour, narrow her fever.
Call to the elders.
Our customary grace and further son, loved in the long ago, loathed in the lately.
A luxury of languish and of rust.
Appraise. Assess our workers in the wild,
lest they descend to malformation and to undertow.
Black love. Define and escort our young. Be means and redemption. Discipline.
Nourish our children, proud, strong, little men, upright, easy.
Quick-flexed, little stern, warm history women.
I see them.
In Ghana.
Kenya.
In the city of Dar es Salaam.
In Kalamazoo.
Mound Bayou.
In Chicago.
Lovely, loving children with long, soft eyes.
Black love, prepare us for all interruptions, assaults, unwanted pauses, furnish for leavings and for losses.
Just come out blackly glowing.
On the ledges,
In the lattices,
Against the failing light of candles that stutter.
And in the chop and challenge of our apprehension be
the always wonderful
Of this world.
You know, speaking of front yards, the first time I was invited to Gwendolyn Brooks' home, I was nervous, tense. I was like, okay, I'm going into Gwendolyn Brooks' house. And I got there, I was very nervous. And then she told this joke, which put me at ease. And I could see she was a real person. She told the story about the 10 Toreador. So I'll share that with you now. 10 Toreadors, 1 bull. 9 Toreadors, 1 bull. 8 Toreadors, 1 bull. 7 Toreadors, 1 bull. 6 Toreadors, 1 bull. 5 Toreadors, 1 bull. 4 Toreadors, 1 bull. 3 Toreadors, 1 bull. 2 Toreadors, 1 bull. 1 Toreador, 1 bull. 1 bull. And that was it. After that, all fear went away. I said, okay, I'm all right now. I can be in the house sitting at the table with Gwendolyn Brooks. But it just showed such a different side of her from the person you see standing at the podium. But that's one of my favorite memories.
Like Cynthia said, that story just tells so much about who Gwendolyn Brooks was. And I think it's interesting that there's a poem of hers that's dedicated to another famous woman, but I've always thought it's an accidental autobiography of her. Sure, the poem is named Jane Addams, and the first part of it deals specifically with what Jane Addams accomplished. But as we move into the last 2/3 or so of the poem, I think that you get a hint of a GB life story as well. Jane Addams. I am Jane Addams. I am saying to the giant less time, to the young and yammering, to the old and corrected, well, chiefly to children coming home with worried faces and questions about world survival. Go ahead and live your life. You might be surprised. The world might continue. It was not easy for me in the days of the giants. And now they call me a giant because my capitals were labor, reform, welfare, tenement regulation, juvenile court law, the first, factory inspection, workmen's compensation, women's suffrage, pacifism, immigrant justice. And because black, brown, and white, and red, and yellow heavied my hand and heart, I shall tell you a thing about giants that you do not wish to know. Giants look in mirrors and see almost nothing at all. But they leave their houses nevertheless. They lurch out of doors to reach you, the other stretchers and strainers, erased under ermine or loud in tatters. Oh, moneyed or mashed, you matter. You matter, and giants must bother. I bothered. Whatever I was tells you the world might continue. Go on with your preparations, moving among the quick and the dead, nourishing here, there, pressing a hand among the ruins and among the seeds of restoration. So speaks a giant, Jane, and I might add, Gwen.
I believe that my first encounter with Miss Brooks was through the word, of course, when I was a kid in Detroit. That's how I first met her work. Then I moved to Chicago in about 1984. I first saw her read at University of Chicago. Well, one interesting thing about Miss Brooks was that she was kind of a poetry angel of Chicago, and she was notorious for going around and doing little kind of miniature poetry contest. This was around the mid 90s, I want to say 94, 95 or so, that I was at the Chicago Black Writers Conference at Chicago State University. And they had an impromptu little poetry slam, and I slammed the poem, and I actually won $100 from Ms. Brooks. Evidence of her great generosity. I was very thankful. And I was also very, very honored to meet Ms. Brooks, whose lyrical prowess and her eye for the heart and soul of Chicago was so penetrating and so very specific and very wide at the same time. I guess Gwendolyn Brooks has been such a model in so many different ways. It's really amazing to see the kind of furious flowering of Black poets and Black poetry that has come after her legacy.
Okay, y'all. So, there's no way we're getting out of a GB 101 experience without mentioning her most famous piece, We Real Cool. Now, of course, Gwendolyn Brooks always felt like she wished that, how did she put it, that the anthology writers would, reference other things that she has written. But for whatever reason, this was the piece that struck everyone, probably because of its meter, the way that it is accessible for all ages. And honestly, it's a very, very illustrious and descriptive piece, as simple as it is. And the simplicity of it is what makes it so beautifully complex. And it's also what lends to the great story that you're going to get ready to watch right after this. But before we jump into that, there's a story that Gwendolyn Brooks always told before she read this particular piece. And it was something to the effect of, it was amazing to her to hear how other people would read the piece and would make their own assumptions based on some of the wording that she used. Specifically, the Jazz June section of the piece. So, as Gwendolyn Brooks puts it, she picked a month that was active, that was always movement. There was always a lot of movement, and there was a lot of heat, and that was the month of June. And for her, jazz also symbolized sort of that movement or that feeling. But a lot of people heard Jazz June and for some reason took it as a sexual reference. And as Gwendolyn Brooks would put it, if that helps anybody else out, hey, to each their own. She had no objections if it helped anyone else. And that's what I love about the person that was Gwendolyn Brooks, is that she took no qualms in addressing what other people said and also clarifying what it was that she meant within her work. It was beautiful to see that and experience that in any crowd that she was a part of or leading. So now it is my duty and also my esteemed honor to share with you the amazing video put together by the folks over at the Poetry Foundation. It is a 6-minute video based around the work of Gwendolyn Brooks entitled We Real Cool. Check it out.
I guess I'd better offer you We Real Cool. Most young people know me only by that one. I don't mean that I dislike it, but I would prefer it if the textbook compilers and the anthologists would assume that I've written a few other poems. I wrote it because I was passing by a pool hall in my community one afternoon during school time, and I saw therein a little bunch of boys, I say here in this poem, 7, and they were shooting pool. But instead of asking myself, why aren't they in school? I asked myself, I wonder how they feel about themselves. The pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool, we left school, we learn late, we strike straight, we sing, we then gin, we jazz June, we die soon.
I love that video so much. And I'm always wiggling and bopping by the time we get into the music. So it is just wonderful. But now it's time for another fantastic fact. This one is about a phone call I had with my mother where I don't know what went wrong in my head, but I knew how absolutely addicted my mother was to certain soap operas, but especially All My Children. So I knew better than to call at noon on a weekday. I don't know what was going on with my head, but I did. Wasn't paying attention to the time, I guess. And long before we had call notifications and all of that kind of stuff, my mother picked up the phone and said, "All My Children," and hung up. Didn't care who it was on the phone because they should have known better, and she just got off. And a lot of people think that, that someone so esteemed and known would not be into soap operas. People had said that to my mother before, and that is not the case. So if you have something that you love that other people think that you shouldn't admit to, then forget about them and just go on with your joy.
Miss Jackson, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about taking on the role of Illinois Poet Laureate and how you think of that work after it was done and molded for 3 decades by Miss Brooks.
Who else would I have modeled myself after? I just had 2 words, excellence and generosity. She embraced the whole state, young people in particular, and she embraced all young people. That is what I made it my intention to do. I've also done quite a few readings on my own, not nearly as many as she did. When I was working on her biography, I found out how much Miss Brooks was on the road. She was on the traveling train from September through June, almost continuously, an exhausting schedule, but she did it, and she gave of herself. After each reading, she would talk to people and sign their books for an hour or more until the last person's book had been signed. I don't think I have that kind of stamina to give, but I try to be the kind of giver that she was. So I had a good example. As far as excellence, well, Gwendolyn Brooks is Gwendolyn Brooks. I do the best that I can, but I'm not Gwendolyn Brooks.
On behalf of everyone here at Brooks Permissions, we just want to say thank you for joining us for the September GB7. Now, we want you to stay tuned because there's a whole lot more coming. As stated at the top of this GB7, this is our official relaunch event, and we will be reintroducing ourselves throughout the coming months. Next month, we'll be talking with some gentlemen surrounding the idea of Gwendolyn Brooks's social commentary and her impact in regards to the new piece that we've released through Graphic Gwendolyn entitled Two Boys, which is available right now on our website, www.gwendolynbrooks.net. Thereafter, we will continue our volumes of Allow Us to Reintroduce Ourselves until our official relaunch event this coming January. Be on the lookout for all things Brooks Permissions.
I chose the poem Song of Winnie Mandela for the GB 101. To me, this poem expresses the view that The reader brings their personal thoughts and experiences to the poet's piece. Gwen also states that poetry isn't always pretty, but should deal with the rough reality of life. Song of Winnie Mandela. Yet I know that I am a poet. I pass you my poem. A poem doesn't do everything for you. You are supposed to go on with your thinking. You are supposed to enrich the other person's poem with your extensions, your uniquely personal understandings, thus making the poem serve you. I pass you my poem to tell you you are all vulnerable. The rigid, the mighty, the richest, the poor, men, women, children, and trees. I am vulnerable. Hector Peterson was vulnerable. My poem is life and not finished. I shall never be finished. My poem is life and can grow. Wherever life can grow, it will. It will sprout out and do the best it can. I give you what I have. You don't get all your questions answered in this world. How many answers shall be found in the developing world of my poem? I don't know. Nevertheless, I put my poem, which is my life, into your hands, where it will do the best it can. I am not a tight-faced poet. I am tired of little tight-faced poets sitting down to shape perfect, unimportant pieces. Poems that cough lightly, catch back a sneeze. This is the time for big poems, roaring up and out of sleeves, pouring from ice, from vomit, and from tainted blood. This is the time of stiff or vicious poems, big and big.